You went big. I called my friend and I was so jealous. I was like, Mariam, please, quickly. Welcome to the show, by the way. Welcome. It's so nice to have you. Is that good?
Likewise.
Okay,
Great to be here.
If you can, I want to try to switch this up. Could you give the listeners and viewers a little bit of just a background of who you are and what you've built at Softr?
Yeah, so I'm Mariam, the co-founder of Softr, co-founder CEO. And Softr is a no-code platform for those who don't know. One of the easiest no-code platforms to build business apps, mostly internal tools and portals powered by your data, whether your data is in Airtable, Google Sheets, SQL databases, now Notion as well, Monday, HubSpot. We connect to all kinds of databases and you create apps on top of that. So some examples are, employee portals, team intranets, CRMs, client and partner portals, all kinds of stuff where typically businesses will be building for their internal operations or for their external client and partner communications. While I said that, Software is also very horizontal. So lots of customers call us Lego kit, like Lego-like building experience.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of you're the Lego of like app building
exactly.
or whatever. Yeah.
And with the same building blocks that you build all these other apps, you can also lots of people build beyond what I just mentioned. So there's tons of people building other stuff, other cool stuff. So check out our social pages.
Yeah, check out everything Softr. It's softr.io, softr.io, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's back when we were loving competitors, I think. Like I think just in the no code space, and we came up in like 2020, was it? I think
2020, was the very, very beginning of our MVP.
Yeah, and I want to highlight something for I want to highlight both like a hope piece, which is you could be me and a solo founder, non-technical solo founder, and hit your low millions-ish, right? With I think we raised like a little over $1 million in venture, but nothing big, no price round, nothing like that. But you went big. You went big. I'll never forget this. And I'm gonna tell you this right now. When you guys announced, was it a couple years? Was that in 2022? You guys had your big raise.
2021, actually, 3 years ago.
Geez, 2021.
Almost, January
2021.
2021.
I called my friend and I was so jealous. I was like, dude, they just raised $13 million and they have this many. And I'll never forget, like, I've always listened to that jealousy and admired what you've built, right? Like, I've always thought like, oh, 13 million, that's a big raise, But with that comes a lot of pressure. Did you feel that pressure when you raised that big round? Or was it just like, no, this is business as usual?
No, I think with the raise in general, with raising with VCs, right, there comes lots of responsibility and of course expectations as well. I think, pressure, not really. I think you still build your product. I mean, it depends on who you raise from also, of course. Yeah. But if you have really good and understanding product understanding investors, which is we are lucky to have some, and we are lucky to have all of them be that type. Usually, it's pressure, usually from customers, rather.
Oh yeah,
I would say
plummeting.
Building the product and delivering on what the customers are expecting, really.
Absolutely, that's how you win, right? Like I've always thought that you can sell promise and you can sell performance, and I mean, up until the million, I always wanted to sell performance. Like, here's my metrics, for lack of a better term, it's just what I call it around my office, is like the ability to go, these metrics are baller with or without money, without outside fundraising. I've always felt like if I can do it resource constrained, I'm going to win with VC dollars, So I've always put that onus or that stress on me to do that. But backing up to 2020, as what you were saying right before I pressed the record button, you were like building the MVP. And how long were you building that MVP? before you launched it?
Yeah, it was a year working alongside our jobs, other things. So I was mostly on the product and design side, but not full time. And then my co-founder Arthur was also working in a full time job, and this was basically for about a year, nights on days and nights building and talking to customers until
Yeah.
like there was an MVP. And actually, our early also kind of version, and what our goal was to really kind of wasn't really to raise, but we wanted to validate the product, validate the idea, get already X number of revenue in our bank monthly, because also we would have to sustain ourselves if we are going
Yeah.
full time. And yeah, that was kind of our goal to, okay, then we will see if it actually really is necessary, because we would like to accelerate after that. And yeah, from
So
there.
you wanted to so before your actual launch, and we'll get into some of these launching questions. I mean, because that's where I think you're brilliant, or that you've done over the last few years. Because I get lovingly badgered in my DMs about like, hey, we launched this new thing, we launched this new thing, we launched this new thing, and I'm like, oh my lord, you've launched so many top products. Okay, so, and you have, to your like product velocity credit, to your product brilliance credit, and like you said, you're a designer. You designed the platform. Um,
Engineer,
you
actually, engineer designing the product. That's more
okay? Well,
correct.
that's what I mean. That's another thing. Harkening back to what I said about you can be a solo founder and like non-technical founder and be me and use no code tools, and then just hire people. But I think the way that you kind of sped up beyond what anything I could do was both you and your co-founder were technical, right?
Yep.
You can't beat that. So you can't beat when you're a technical founder. And that again, the pressure is on someone like me or the no code founders out there. That's like, you have to find someone to build with you or pay people to build with you. And you're kind of like, you don't have someone that's in the dog. Maybe that's not the right one, but like in the doghouse, like with you every day. And you kind of had that for like a year with nights and weekends with Arthur. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And that's why there is no code, right? Nowadays.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. That's why people like me and people like you can use Softr and Bubble and V1 maybe eventually when we re-release it. Um, like to your benefit. So and get that early traction in those early customers.
Yeah.
So for you, before you officially launched it on Product Hunt, you wanted to get an initial set of customers, an initial set of feedback, an initial set of revenue. Is that what you were saying?
Exactly, exactly.
Did
And
you have
actually
any
a certain
benchmark?
number of revenue, like
Huh.
10K, 20K
Oh, okay.
revenue, so then we actually could prove to ourselves that it's worth, first of all, to spend full time on this. But then also we
Yeah.
could prove to ourselves that there is actually a value in what we are building, and it does make sense to build this product.
Okay, cool. So you're building, you haven't officially publicly launched this. So how, while you were building and getting those first initial users and customers, which is very important, how did you go about getting those initial people?
Yeah, very good question. I think the journey of finding those people started when I discovered Twitter no code, which you probably remember as well at the time. So while we were
Yeah.
within this year really kind of testing and talking to customers, etc., we kind of found that as, oh, there is this group of people that are really passionate. They keep talking. They talk about all these tools they build all day long. And then kind of I joined that group and then just started being active, also talk to those people, understand what's missing in the space, etc. And they were, I mean, when we had like very early prototypes or something with some of them, actually kept testing and asking them to, do something and then share their feedback. So kind of regular loop, keeping them in the regular loop. And then it was already at the time, I think there was a no code summit by Webflow at the time, no code conf,
Okay. Yeah. Oh, no code
at the
conf.
time.
Yeah.
That was the very
Yeah.
first one where we joined. And I did speak also on behalf of Softr, but Softr wasn't launched yet, I believe, at the time.
Okay.
So I was actually still already kind of catching up and people really curious what this product is about. Because yeah, there was already lots of excitement. So I kind of started talking and getting this feedback early on.
So was a lot of people like myself, like if we didn't get current customer, we have two ways of getting customers right now because we don't buy ads. So it's or we don't put money into marketing in that way with ads. So it's like current customers getting us new customers, referrals, affiliates, things like that. Or it is cold outreach. So I don't think people get around like not doing cold outreach in some form or fashion at the beginning. Did you utilize cold outreach, whether it be for like early traction, or is it just you putting something out publicly and people coming to it? What was the divide there early on?
Cold outreach, if it's like, just I would say not really, like if reaching out to people building with no code, if that's called outreach, I don't know. But within the
That's
no code
outreach.
space, I mean, I wouldn't consider that an outreach. It was basically just working, like talking to the community, the people building with other tools, right? Understanding what's missing for them in the market, what types of tools they're building, etc. So I would say this was more like discovery and just understanding
Mm,
what is out there and what needs are there. So it was, to me, more of a discovery. But we never have done cold outreach. We still are not doing, and I was just regularly keeping all of these people that I would speak with really kind of engaged and share feedback, share regular updates where how we are doing. So whenever we had like basically just different versions or like the first version launched, so I would then just share that with the community, with all these people in social. So mostly it was Twitter and LinkedIn, and that's how they would see it and they would really like and they wanted to try. It was, I would say, very kind of niche the no code community at the time, and those people are very passionate, right? They're
yeah.
always in product and they want to figure out what new tools are there. And I think, remember, this was like 2020. There wasn't like every other day new no code platform launching on product hand, so there weren't too many platforms back then. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
sure.
would say we also positioned ourselves. Always wanted to be an application builder, so that probably also was interesting. At the time, there was no any backend yet, but we kind of launched the very first version, which was also a website builder, literally with like 10, 20 static blocks you could put together within 5 minutes. Literally, you get a website up and running. And I think that there was lots of people in the community building those types of use
Mm.
cases. So yeah, they were really curious just to try and see what this tool is about.
So how do you like when you talk about the community or like the early community? How was it really something that you're like, hey, you were just engaging, like tactically speaking? How did you spread the initial word before like a product hunt launch? Like you searched for no code community or like an audience that you thought might be interested in your product and then just started engaging in that community before it was built? Or
Exactly. So
okay.
on Twitter, engaging. So just, following those people and learning from them, what's happening in the market, talking to them. But then also in Product Hunt, if you remember, there was like an upcoming page. Right now, there is a teaser type
Oh,
product.
okay.
Before, there was an upcoming page. I think we did that as well, just to kind of to show that product is coming soon. It was already, I think, for some time it was up in there. Still didn't launch, but it also helped attract some people. They were just curious what's gonna come.
Yeah, like that to me I think is because I always think you don't get over the hump of like, was every investor that you had from like warm outreach, like how did you make the connection from traction to like actually raising your first round of venture capital?
We never really did an outreach, so it was all
Really?
inbound. Luckily, it was mostly inbound, especially after the first launch, which was really the bare minimum MVP, which I mentioned
Mm,
on 2020. So right after that, because there was lots of interest, lots of people just trying, and we already had some revenues. There was just people like investors would just outreach inbound, and then we weren't really at the time looking to raise because we wanted to get to a certain point, more revenue or
yep.
more product functionality. But at some point, what we realized as well was it was me and Arthur doing like the building, the designing, working on the product, and the customer support chat. So we did realize basically we just ended up doing customer support chat. We can't build the product. We just don't have time to work on the product because there was so much requests or like bugs, features, etc.
Yep.
So we then made the decision that okay, maybe it's actually a good opportunity because we have the interest. Let's just raise a bit of money so we can hire more people and then move this faster.
Yeah, I think that's amazing as far as like dealing with one. I think it backs up the point. I think I've always said this. I've always said this recently, where I don't think you should raise money unless people are reaching out to you asking you to take their money. So, like, that's kind of what you did, right? Like, if there was no cold outreach, like you were going, hey, we're doing this raise, we're doing this, and it was all inbound, you obviously built something of significance. And that, to me, and tell me your experience, that improves your conversion rate with investors if they're reaching out to you.
Absolutely. I think that's always the position I love to be in. Is I mean it's not, it's ideal. It's not always possible for especially lots of founders and lots of other companies, because they might not necessarily be building similar types of products, right? For
Yeah.
some companies, you need money ahead of time, or capital to build out what you have in mind. But at the same time, I think I mean, that's my advice to me and everyone
Yeah.
else always, is build a product, get the traction, you will always have investors.
Is it you have to so is it the part of the so tactically, right? So at the beginning, you build this MVP, okay? Then you start engaging in communities. And for you, it was Twitter, right? The no or X or Twitter at the time, but
Exactly.
X now, right? And you were just engaging. And then where is the sell of Softr? So we build this product, we engage in the community. Do people then just start asking you about Softr because it's because you're engaged? Are you how do you engage those early people in the community? How do you engage the community
Yeah, good
and try to
question.
also sell Softr?
Yeah, first, so we didn't try to intentionally sell, right? Like we basically what we did was first we published our roadmap. We said these are the things we
Mm,
plan to do. It was always public. It's still that till date. It's public and will always be public, because we wanted to share with with the community and everyone what is coming, because that adds to the excitement. And of course, people
yeah, sure, that's great.
are going alongside with you. And the second, also, we had a direct customer support chat, direct line to our customers. We still have that even for free users, and that has been one of the also biggest, like feedback loops for us.
Yeah,
We also enabled people, of course, to submit your features through through the public roadmap, or set up, like always set up regular calls with them, etc. But I think the customer support chat was where people would use, and they would just immediately share the feedback, immediately find either missing functionality, or they need this, they need more of this, etc. And then then I mean the next step was more strategically. We knew we're building an application builder, so we actually set out to build our own database. We already
mm,
were close to finishing it up, but then because it was taking quite some time, I mean, two of us, and then we decided, okay, let's do an MVP. What's the minimal, the fastest way we could get the database up and running? What's
yeah,
the
yeah.
most, popular and like the most usable one? And then we also had lots of interest about Airtable from the community. We already
Mm,
got here, started hearing people tell us about that, like they have this and this need. So then we said, okay, let's integrate with Airtable as an MVP, and after that we'll move on to our databases.
oh,
But then, yeah, basically what happened with that was still solving much bigger problem than we anticipated. And then we realized, actually, like, again, being close to the customers community, that there is actually huge value. And most of the people that already have databases, they just have no way to build things on top of that, or they have no way to have these
yeah.
siloed databases exposed to whoever they need to. And yeah, that kind of opened up the market a lot more, and our product functionality a lot more to what's possible if we have more databases.
So I originally didn't it launch in 2020 as make a website out of your Airtable database?
No, actually, the first launch was just build a website in 5 minutes. If you go back in our product hunt, that's literally what it says. And this
And but
was
there was no
literally,
database attached?
there's no database. There was just literally
Oh,
static 10 blocks you could put together,
oh,
and we
okay.
built our own website on it, and like on software as well.
Okay.
But next step was the next launch is
Was the was the like the database, the collections,
database and user login functionality. Exactly.
and then you launched it at and then somewhere along the lines it was, we connected Airtable to this front end.
Exactly.
And you did that because of feedback.
Yeah, because of feedback, and second, because it was just taking much longer for us to build an entire database,
Ah,
obviously.
nice. The inside scoop, right? Like you intended something to happen, right? And then along the way, you were just like, for instance, I remember it was make a website, 5 minutes, and then there was Airtable, right? And you were
Yeah,
like, okay, that's great. Not knowing then, right? 3, 4 years ago, that was the interim, like,
exactly. We
well,
thought of
yeah,
it as an interim solution, and until we
yeah,
build
yeah,
our own, which
that's
is still,
great.
on the horizon to build our own. But then what
Yeah,
ended
sure.
up happening is we figured out there's actually a bigger problem for those people that already have a database.
So, so we got one really good tactic with utilizing early people in a community, like early paying people, early customers, early users to give you the feedback. And boom, you have that valuable feedback with like the Airtable piece, right? Your intent was we're going to build our own database. They said Airtable, right? And you were like, this is perfect. We can plug this right in before, we can do this now. How else how did you convert someone from the community to, like, they probably came in as a free user, right? At the beginning, I'm guessing?
The product was always for free,
Always for free.
but free was one of the options. But how we converted them into paying customers. So we intentionally set out to have the product as paid from day one we launched on
Mm,
Product Hunt.
okay.
And why is that? Because even the website builder, which was like in 5 minutes, build a website, because that was our way to validate, is this product actually giving,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
there a
yeah.
value that people would pay for it? That was our, best way. We wanted to validate our customers, really got the value. And I think we priced it something along the lines of maybe $20, $25 or so per one website. And imagine at the time, Wix was charging, I think, $4 or something a month.
Sure, sure,
So
sure.
it was extremely expensive, quite expensive. And some people complained, but there were people that actually paid that for how easy and how fast they could build their website. They didn't
Sure.
care about going to Wix because it really saved them time and all the hustle and the effort of building and maintaining. And like it was also the Wix obviously was slow, was more cumbersome, and there wasn't that
Yeah.
much
So
um,
do you how, like, so okay, so I'm thinking, okay, it's easy. I'll pay that $20 because I would pay that $20. I've given you money. You've had my money over time. And for me, it's like, okay, great. How does someone stick with you? Because like the longer they go, they either don't grow beyond that like easy thing where I'm like, yes, it's the easiest. And I'm imagining, and we haven't discussed this, and I don't know this. How do you maintain those paying customers past the easy part? Because it's good to initially attract them to that that benchmark. Like, hey, this is easy. It's like, yeah, I'll give you $20. This is easy. Oh my God. How do you keep ahead of the demands and the things that they need to keep them as paying customers beyond like, hey, it's easy?
yeah, by building out the product, right? So at the beginning, the product was extremely simple, and
Mm,
we build out to an application builder with databases, login functional, all of that. And there were lots of customers that also, so even till date, actually, the platform supports, and you can still build a website with it. Our
sure,
entire
sure, sure.
website is still
Yeah,
built
right.
with Software,
Yeah,
and you could do that. But over time, as we kind of grew the platform, grew the functionality, and also also grew our segments, and we may also like kind of attracted and started starting a lot more other types of segments, customer segments, using the platform, and the use cases shaped a bit more. Over time we also saw like those early, for example, use cases like websites, or sometimes people for certain use cases also fade away, right? Like for people,
yeah,
if they need more customization, they need very unique websites, etc. It's obvious they can't get it with software because we didn't move into that direction. I think the challenge is, as a product, where do you evolve? Do you evolve to become a very powerful website builder? Do you evolve to there was lots of requests, people asking for that, asking
yeah,
because Webflow was very difficult for many people. Wix wasn't really performing well. It was taking too long for people to learn something. So there was lots of people wanting to build websites with software.
yeah.
But I think that was more of a strategic decision than for us. Okay, which direction we want to take the product, and then being very explicit and also honest with those customers that this is the direction we're going. So
Yep.
it's not really necessarily the solution you're looking for.
Absolutely. And that's what helps by making your roadmap public and the things that you're doing public, where it's like, this is where our focus is. Like,
Exactly.
here are the
Yeah.
things we're working on. And that's a very good tactical tip. So as far as like product velocity goes, right? Like using those first customers for feedback and then iterating on the product over time in a very quick manner, how else do you use those early customers or the early users, even before the product hunt launch, for not just early validation in terms of revenue, but like truly finding product market fit? And what does that mean to like software to find product market fit?
Good question, and it's a hard question. I think
Yeah, I'm going
for
through it
our
myself.
for
So,
our type of product, actually, the learning is just as a kind of recap of all the last 3 years, 4 years, is that PMF also keeps changing. So my
PMF,
expectation also
product
was
market fit.
PMF, exactly.
Yeah,
I was always thinking early on that we will find a PMF and that's it. You have it, and then you just continue growing.
yeah,
That's really not the case. At least in our case, where you have a very horizontal product with so
yeah,
many use cases, etc. Right? So early on, we found PMF within the no-code community with makers. They loved the product. They could build simple, directories and websites and marketplaces real quick. Then we saw it as we evolved the product, as we made it more powerful. There was a lot more functionality. You could build tons more use cases. We saw small businesses evolve and then build, more like simple tooling, simple apps for their businesses or clients. So then we kind of found PMF in that category, in that segment. Then it evolved further as we now improve the product, and you can connect to SQL databases, REST API. It just opens up so much more, and the functionality of the product, what it can do. Basically, then you start kind of growing into the other segment, which is mid-sized companies and beyond, where then now they are using for their entire operations, right? They build
yeah.
apps for their entire operations. And that there again, you have to find PMF there. So then we kind of went into, we have now, okay, we have a PMF here. So it kept
And that's
evolving
how
over
it
the
gets
years.
so horizontal, right?
Exactly.
Like, and I guess explain to some of our viewers here, like what listeners, what horizontal means, because you just described what horizontal was. Where I think if I told a VC or someone that like we have product market fit here and here and here and here, they might go, well, I don't know if you have product market fit. Or like I've literally been told by venture capitalists that you're too horizontal. So they've
Yes.
used that as a as a contradiction to like validating anything, or like you really don't have product market fit. How do you handle that challenge? Or what does it mean to you?
Yeah. Like an example of what is horizontal, what's not, right? So
Yeah.
HR platform for HR managers to manage their employee salaries, etc., performance management. That's a very vertical solution. It's
Mm.
targeting HR managers. It's one platform. You log in, you have the functionality, it's there. That's it, right? That's what you're buying. That's a vertical solution for one segment of users. So
Yep.
now, like
Horizontal.
horizontal in this case with software, you can build its building blocks of software building, right? We give you the building blocks and you can build all kinds of applications. So if you're, so as a software engineer, so kind of if you think back at what software building is, 80-90% of all the software consists of the same functionality. It has login functionality.
Mm.
It has CRUD actions, which is create, update, delete on top of your data, UI functionality, business logic in between, and database. And the functionalities, what's happening in between, that's all kind of systematized and is very similar. Yes, you have different variations, you have different configurations, different designs on the UI, but at the end of the day, 80% of all of that is the same functionality. So what we set out to do was really kind of to turn all that 80% into building blocks that are just given or do a lot of the work for you, and then you customize and get the 20% also very kind of custom to your platform. So what that means is we have all these building blocks, and think of Lego. With the Lego building blocks, if you have all the templates that the Lego game gives you, then you can build different types of Legos, right? Similar concept. So you can build different types of use cases with software for different size companies. Like entrepreneurs can build their own, MVP. Businesses build client customer portals. Bigger businesses build entire operation workflows using multiple databases. And so the industries are all over, very horizontal. So
Yeah,
all
yeah.
kinds of industries can use it. All size companies can use it, and all types of use cases are emerging. So that's what kind of in all in all different categories we are horizontal, which then also makes it even harder to for you to as you know the builder and the team behind to figure out, do you have a PMF
Yeah,
for all the use
yeah,
cases? Do you have PMF for certain data sources and not the others yet? So
yeah.
that's all kind of evolving, and yeah, you have to kind of figure
How do
out
you
as you go.
Yeah, right. And that's why I ask, because like I'm going through this. Like when you initially launch with like an early set of users, the idea to me, and you tell me where I'm right and wrong. You launch it early, right? For us, we got thousands of paying users, like launching Task Magic on like AppSumo. And our job was to like, okay, we publicly release the roadmap. We build the community that we have, and now we have over 1,400 people in that right now. Join at school if you can. So, Task Magic's Lazy Empire. We have a softer tab in there. I think. I think we do. Or we'll get you in there. We'll post this in there. So, but then you're like hoping that something out of these 2,000 people, because it's very horizontal, right? Like thousands of people are doing a ton of different things with it. And what would your advice be to me, or a lot of other builders and founders have this issue? How would you find what your product market fit is if everyone was using your product for generally something different? What would be kind of your first step into finding what you think is product market fit? Looking at how are 10 people using it? And again, I don't think there's a right answer, but how would you approach that?
Yeah. Well, you start looking for patterns. That's kind of the
Hmm.
at least the way we
So
have
a
been.
pattern in like 20 users use it this way. So you would then talk to them.
Yeah, I think find patterns and then talk to customers, understand how big of a problem this is solving for them. Because you might find hundreds or thousands of people building specific use case, but it's like one of, or after 2 months they're going to be gone. It's not really solving like a huge pain point. And so finding patterns that within customers that are really solving huge pain point, and they are ready to well pay you but also stay with you long term, and they are committed to continue building more with your product.
I
Basically you will see a
Yeah.
retention and stickiness of your product. And I think over time also that's how we understood, because our platform, the way we have built it intentionally, there's lots of limitations in the sense that you can't, it's not giving you a canvas to build everything from scratch. There are certain things that are pre-built, but they are actually working perfectly for certain types of use cases. If you're building especially internal tools and portals, then typically those platforms are 80% of the time mostly kind of have similar layout, similar functionality, etc. The needs and the functionality are the same. So with the platform, you can actually cover all those kinds of use cases. We also then, by talking to customers, understanding the use cases, we realized, okay, these are really like pain points that people have in the companies, and they use software for those. And then we have also other types of use cases where uh, after some time people just build stuff, test and iterate, and then they leave. That's fine too, right? But you cannot build a business big business
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
that. So
yeah.
you have to really figure out which use cases and what types of customers really get the most value out of the
Oh,
product.
I love that. Chef's kiss. Three more questions quickly, and then we'll get you out of there because I know we're running low on time, and you're more important than I am, most likely. So you got more people to answer to. So you've made a lot of successful launches on Product Hunt. I'm very proud of you for this. Like
Thank you.
it's amazing. You've done wonderful work. Um, what is the difference between like putting something on, say, like an email list and like as like, hey, this is our feature update, right? Or actually making an official launch on a Product Hunt or some other platform? Like I think you just launched. Did you launch it? What was the last launch you DM'd me about? Was it the
Software
REST
for
API?
Notion. Software for Notion,
Notion,
using
Notion.
Notion
Yeah.
as a database.
Okay, so great. So you made two launches in the last couple weeks. One was because I do follow you. This is proof. As with Notion as your database or your source of truth and connecting it to Softr. That you released on Product Hunt. And then just like last week, you released your REST API,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
and which you didn't put on Product Hunt, right?
Yeah.
Terrific. This is great. This question's working out really great. I'll just lead up here. So, how do you decide which one to like really publicly put effort behind and like one to just launch to your customers like the REST API thing? How do you differentiate how to launch either like a feature or when does it become big enough to launch on like a product hunt?
Yeah. I think especially early on, it does make sense to launch more often on Product Hunt,
Mm,
especially if your audience and customer base aligns with Product Hunt. I think there's one important thing. Basically, if you're launching, a legal kind of platform that's like sales driven and it doesn't even have a free open product sign up, you shouldn't launch on Product Hunt, right? Like, you have to be very, very clear
mm,
what I'm launching on Product Hunt, where the audience is mostly makers and people, small businesses that are looking for new tools. They are very kind of tech savvy. They want to improve their businesses or their lives. Then if there's a match, that's when you should launch. I think that's the first thing for us. So the way we make a decision is this big enough and interesting enough functionality or product that's going to be really interesting for the Product Hunt community.
mm.
So one example, either it's very community driven because we have lots of community members and lots of people on Product Hunt that love Softr, and either this is very kind of community driven, we know they will love this update, etc., they will keep using, or it's something that's kind of that still aligns with the, maybe it's not necessarily like very used for the community, but it's something that's actually worth sharing because it's really a big update. Like we had an AI app generator. This was something really big and kind of new as well, so we wanted to share this with the world. So with the Notion integration, again, there's tons of people that are like maker type or people that are using Notion for either their businesses or operations or their life. So
Yeah.
they could they could use the opportunity. They could leverage Softr for lots of use cases. REST API, like other examples are, SQL databases, HubSpot. Like no HubSpot typical,
Mm,
customer or an agency company is, browsing Product Hunt day to day.
okay.
I think so. We could
Sure.
have, but I
Yeah.
think it's also back to the effort and what you get as a result, right? Like, is it worth the effort? Is it aligning enough for you to launch on Product Hunt?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, and backs into one of my other things I had for you, which was the effort that goes into a product hunt launch is like, I know Mariam, okay? You're not launching to be not top product, right? So, and you have a little built-in energy behind you because you have how many users do you have or email it? Like, was it
More than half
300,000?
half million.
Half a million you're up to?
Yes.
Congrats. Congrats.
Thank you.
Um, with thousands and thousands of paying customers, right? Thousands and
Right.
thousands. There we
Yes.
go. There we go. There we go. We got it for you. So, with all of those users, you send out an email blast and you have some momentum on your side now, right? Like now you can, and you can almost all but guarantee a top product. So, but early on, how do you build that momentum to almost all but ensure you get that top product? Is there any way you look differently, like talking to top makers or getting them to hunt it? Or is there something where is there like a tactical piece of advice there? Like you don't just throw up an early product. Now you might be able to and push it out on your email list. That's great. How do you look at that early if you really wanted to launch a top product and you were kind of nothing?
Actually, I'd say it's completely the opposite. Right now, it's
Mm.
actually more difficult to really
What do you think?
rank. Like, yeah, the email list doesn't really matter. I think what matters is actually the number of passionate people interested in the topic you're launching. So early on, it was actually, like I mentioned, I was kind of building like people around, like interest in people, talking to people. So there was lots of interest around, okay, what's coming, what
Mm.
product are we building, etc. So there was like list of, I think, about maybe 300 to 500 users we had in our waiting list, I think, from the upcoming
Oh
page.
wow. Yeah.
So and also it was, I think, early at those days that there was lots, like no code was really interesting, and nowadays maybe it's a bit harder. And like, I think, well, two main things. One, really build a great product that people would love using. I mean, they use, and literally in our case, I mean, I got messages from people saying, they feel like they got superpowers, or they can do, they can build this in 5 minutes. It's like
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
people just loved you doing that. And then they naturally, obviously, like you said, as well, for your product, they keep sharing, they keep telling others, and that organically grows. Second, and nurture and grow those early users that you have,
Mm,
listen to their feedback, talk to them, and then keep them up to date, right? As you have new launches, you have new
yep.
updates, they will definitely be early on there to support you. I think that's why early, actually, I think there was actually a lot more excitement compared to now. It's harder because we have much bigger user base. We also don't send the email to everyone because most of the people are actually not even aware of what product hunt is, and
Sure.
we will end up in this. We'll end up in their spam emails instead.
Okay. Yeah.
So right now, we still have the community. Obviously, it has grown, etc. We have lots of experts around software that also love sharing and supporting. But I think on a relative kind of scale, it's not that big of a difference, really, whether that's early or bigger scale.
Okay, cool. So we've talked a lot about like building and getting your initial traction. And I think the through line through this, or what's helped you a lot, is communities. So at the beginning, you kind of utilize OPN or other people's networks. So,
Okay.
but you take Twitter and then you take Product Hunt, which is those other people's networks, right? And you kind of filter the people interested in your product to your community. So, was there something you noticed when you kind of transitioned from like other people's networks, like the Twitter community that was in no code, and the Product Hunt community that was interested in no code, and how you got them and how you utilize them inside your own community? Was there a difference, like how you approached other people's communities and then your community?
I would say a lot of those early no-code community members became part of our community, right? They were
Mm,
early adopters of software, and they became part of the community. Then it started growing from there by
mm,
them
yeah,
telling others, or just completely new people coming to no-code and discovering software for the first time. So I would say then it kind of grew again through word of mouth by them, the early group sharing more in social, in other places. In other communities, like in Slack communities where we didn't even know, there are some software groups, and people talk about
sure.
building things, etc. So it kind of naturally then organically evolved, especially then more new people coming into the space. And because software is so easy and intuitive, a lot of people found success with it, right? They wanted to learn no code was becoming popular, but they couldn't use many other platforms. But software was really easy to start their journey, and then
Yeah,
they basically, yeah, got really
that's
kind of
great.
felt like they have superpowers.
Yeah, honestly, I remember using it for the first time a couple years ago and going, this is like the easiest thing ever. So, um, kudos to you and the team. Artur is his name.
Yes.
Okay, great, great.
We'll pass that.
It's not Arthur, right? It's
Arthur.
Artur.
Yeah.
Artur, right? Artur. A
It
A
doesn't really
T.
matter. I think it's the same name in every
Oh, it is
other
the same
language.
thing.
It's
Okay,
the same
great.
name,
Yeah, that's terrific.
just
He can.
pronounced differently depending who says that.
That's perfect. So anyway, so growing. Last two questions. Getting the initial users, amazing. You had the traction, you had everything you wanted. Now, growing beyond those users, I'm learning that it is taking those user stories and kind of finding more of those people that are like those early users. Is there any point in time where the product leaves behind some early users where you're like, we're just growing in a different direction? Like, how do you grow beyond like your early users? Is it using them to grow or finding different areas? What would be your overall advice for growing beyond the initial first customers?
Yeah, good question. Early on, I mean, until date, we have our big portion of our growth, like almost all the growth, is coming through organic and word of mouth channels, which means
Nice.
organic, that's, multiple, social and
Yeah.
just like directly people searching for software. And then also content SEO, so through SEO as well. So I think early on what we did was we figured like beyond the word of mouth and people telling each other about software, we did also started figuring out what are the problems people are looking for to solve, and a lot of the times we realized people search for building certain things, right, in Google. And that's what
Mm.
they like sometimes. They just don't know there's no code tools even. They are looking to solve a specific problem. So then we kind of started building out some content and with the some content SEO efforts, some articles that would basically just answer that question. I'd say that has been then the second biggest early on. That really
Mhm.
helped us to then find people beyond just the no-code community who were actually looking for solving exact problems, real
Oh,
problems.
that's amazing. Okay, you've been so amazing. I think the last thing I have for you is where does like we just mentioned, Softr launched connection with Notion, their REST API. Those are two pretty big, huge things to care about if you like Softr. Where does Softr go from here?
Should I tell?
You should tell
Yeah,
what
we
I
have a
can.
public roadmap
Oh,
in the first place. But beyond that, there's of
where
course
do
lots
you
of things.
personally go with where do you want to see it beyond? What does the roadmap not tell?
Yeah, yeah. So not everything obviously is there. So long
Yeah,
term,
go to the roadmap. As Mariam tells everyone, our roadmap can be found here. Go there.
it can.
See ya. Yeah.
So while right now our goal really is to build the easiest and the most powerful
Mm.
application builder to build business apps, and that's the biggest challenge is to keep it extremely easy at the same time powerful. I think that's the balance that's the hardest to find. And right now I think we have come to quite long journey and come to a place where there's lots of people already using software for very serious operational kind of processes and lots of things within their organizations or externally. Long term, like I mentioned early on, we still were looking to build like a full stack application builder, right?
Yep.
Like software is not just front end, is not just database. There's tons of things as part of that. So our really long term goal is next year. There's lots of big things coming up. So we are definitely now having all these databases being completely data agnostic. Next step is actually for software to become a full stack solution.
Oh, so complete front end server. What am I thinking? The three stacks are front end server
Exactly. Three
side
stacks
language
that a
database. Yeah.
software
Yeah.
is supposed to have, right? The
Yeah.
database, a front end, and then a business logic, which kind of
Yeah.
you can
Business
translate
logic,
that
server
into
side.
into
Yep.
workflows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we are generally long term in 2024. There's going to be some big updates coming along this
2024, we only have a month
25,
and change
20,
left. Whoa,
25.
follow the roadmap,
Maybe in
people.
24. Who knows? We are very fast.
You are very fast. So, okay. All right. So, I love you. I love what you're doing. So,
Thank you. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks
no,
for having
thank
me.
you.